Hello, beautiful family. This is Paloma. I come back with the story the sky is telling for the next few days, hoping this message reaches you in peace, in calm, in trust. And thank you for listening. Well, now we are opening December, which is the last month of this calendar year. December feels a little restless, to be honest. It tends to be, doesn't it, with all the holidays and the parties and everything that usually happens in this month. The energy actually feels quite festive now. On the one side, we already have Venus, Mars, the Sun in Sagittarius, and this gives a more hopeful, vital, and joyful energy available. A bit chaotic also, I must say, because we have so much mutable energy in the sky that gives us this sensation of everything everywhere at the same time. So, because this is so, I think we ought to be quite intentional to go slower, to take pauses, to contemplate, and to allow for this integration of new energy that is already here, as well as a culmination of processes, because this is both things are happening simultaneously. So at the moment, Saturn has stationed direct. This is going to ask us a much more tangible commitment and capacity to respond. This is the last stage of this maturation in the school of compassion, Pisces. So there is really no room for victimization, sacrifice, or escapism of sorts. There's a strong calling us into integrity. And I think for everyone, this is a very, very karmic ending, karmic cycle, a process of the soul that is culminating. Then we also have Mercury that just stationed direct as well. It is until Monday that he's going to start actually moving. And then we will feel as well a bit more flow, a bit more momentum and direction in terms of our communication, exchanges. And we will be, I guess, accessing more clarity from what these 3 weeks of inner journey and reflection have been about. So we're there, no? We're like gathering momentum. In the midst of all this change of rhythm, this week we will have a full moon in Gemini on the 4th of December. This is at 13 degrees of the school of the sacred message. The seed for this full moon was planted at the very end of May 2025, in case you want to look at the spiral of the last 6 months of a seed, I would say, to elaborate a new narrative so we can come into this moment of realization, illumination, emotional, about what is the story we are telling ourselves. At the same time, this is the first great moment of light after the new moon in Scorpio that we just had 2 weeks ago. So there's a lot to see, to hear, to express, and maybe even to doubt. Sometimes doubt is a very healthy thing, especially if we allow ourselves to doubt our thoughts, no, and to open our listening to other parts like our body, like our hearts, like our soul, so we can encounter deeper truths about ourselves. And I think that's very much what this is about. So this is the last full moon of the year. It's a super moon. It's pretty agitated or restless. This is a moon in the school of, curiosity, connection, relationship, the immediacy, the velocity of the everyday life, the duality, pure duality to be integrated. And there's all this light, I would say, for us to notice what story we are living in, what story we are telling ourselves about who we are. And I think that's very much the invitation, like to have a reflection about the inner dialogue, the inner storytelling, and to become aware if this is a story that is empowering us or a story that is limiting, what kind of story you're living. And as I was actually recording the horoscopes for this, I remembered this film. Perhaps you remember it, Stranger Than Fiction. It's kind of old now, but the main character is actually listening to a narrative, a narration in his own mind, and he asks a writer to get some accessory, yeah, to understand what's going on, no, with the story he's listening in his head. And it's very curious because the writer actually asks him, are you living in a tragedy or a comedy? What kind of story are you listening to? And I think that's very much this full moon, no, with a lot of nuances in terms of depth and emotion, but it's very much like that. So, of course, in front of the moon, we're going to have the sun in Sagittarius with all of this energy of already wanting to expand, to open our wings, to go beyond something, this transcendental and big, calling us into new skies, whilst Gemini is going to be probably pulling us into the urgent and the diversity of diligences to be handled in the daily life. And I think this is the first big integration towards balance, that we can discern or distinguish the urgent from the important, and the sacred from the I don't know the word in English, but you know what I mean. Finding balance between these spaces in ourselves, because the singularity of this full moon is that we have a big, a grand, a mutable square. So the sun and the moon, both of them are squaring the nodes of fate or karma, precisely at 13 degrees of Virgo and Pisces. This is a mutable square, so it feels, as I said at the moment, like we're being pulled in so many directions at the same time, and like our attentions get very scattered, and we can't really distinguish what is true, where to invest our attention, our energy. Everything feels quite fast or accelerated, changing form, changing sense. No, and that is why it requires a very intentional management of our mind energy, our breath, the energy in terms of generality. So we don't get overwhelmed. That's what I want to get to, no? Because it looks a little overwhelming on a layer, no? Because this is a moment of a lot of information, and also a full moon that is kind of pushing us into choosing, into a decision point. It's a point for choice, a choice point. So how to make a decision amongst all of this noise, Do you follow me? That's why I call us into a calmer state before we even jump, because we're also feeling a lot of the energy from the future, and it might get confusing, like we must act now onto this energy that we're already feeling, and it's calling us. And yes, it's there, it's calling us, but it is not the moment for the most radical impulsive action just yet. If we look at the characters, the south node, which is the past, and the north node, which is the calling us into evolution, we might be feeling something is holding us back, like a pattern and attachment. And then we are also feeling this very strong call from our soul, from the future, from service, from purpose, with such strength. So the choice, I would say, comes from choosing that, the soul calling that is there. And this requires us to go beyond beliefs, beyond patterns, beyond distractions and noise, perhaps into the silence of our inner garden, so we can arrive to a decision from this calmness and from this soul connection. Because this is a sky that looks a little bit like we get into a crossroad of sorts with the Gemini energy. And now this moon is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is now direct, but is still in Scorpio. So it looks like the duality, right, of Gemini. There's this layer that feels very chaotic and noisy, but there's a deeper layer, because Mercury in Scorpio is still creating these grand trines of water, like this flow of waters that are purifying, that are deep, that are emotional. And so it looks like there's something deeper, there's something more intuitive, of true and deep emotional honesty that we can arrive to in this energy, so we can harvest this truth that springs from communing with ourselves. And also, I would bring that there will be a lot of exchange of information. Maybe the world's going to get very noisy. But when we speak of communication, and this is the kind of moon about big announcements, I would also bring the importance of listening, ourselves and also others, no? Because this weather can promote healing and transformation through authentic dialogue. And this requires listening. So there is a sky that is encouraging us to recognize thought patterns, as I said, like the story, that we have overcome, really, so we can explore a truer essence and make choices from there. As I said, there might be some big news in terms of the world, a lot of chit chat, but I would suggest not to get too lost or involved or attached to it, because it is not the final moment of decisions, neither for ourselves or the world. And to invest our energy and time in anchoring ourselves in the spiritual connection feels quite vital right now, to be attuned to our spirit. It is a moment to recognize that aligning ourselves, or aligning what we think and know with what we feel, seems extremely relevant. By this, I mean a coherent state of our mind and hearts, because they seem to be there. No, these are the layers that I am mentioning. And this is how we center our energy, and we can look through the layers of misinformation towards a transcendental truth that wants to be illuminated from within. That's what I see. And so let's say yes to the festivity, to the joy, to the opening of our hearts, to hope, to a wide look, perspective, and to the beauty of feeling inspired perhaps by all this fire, but also like really stay in touch with discernment in the immediate reality of our daily life, so we can stay grounded in presence and in, yeah, cultivating sanity within all the madness. So the map, something else that calls my attention in this map is the fact that Mars is closing in into a square with Saturn in Pisces. This will be perfect next week, but everything feels a little early with Mars. So I'm naming this because of the sensation of wanting to jump towards the next thing, and also because if you're very intuitive, you're already feeling the future. And to me, it looks like there is still some processing. I mean, Mercury is going to come out of shadow by the 15th of December. Neptune's going to station direct on the 10th of December. So, and there's also all this water there still moving things, purifying things, pushing us, yes, into a decision perhaps, but I just wouldn't say it's the time to run. Okay, even though it might feel counterintuitive because there's this fire that wants to run and there's this Mars in Sagittarius, the Mars Saturn energy can result in frustration, basically, if we want to go too fast. And here there's a necessity to still process, digest, to cultivate true maturity and balance this enthusiasm with a practical realism. Yeah. So in truth, I still feel we are in the between the caterpillar and the butterfly, basically, to make myself understood. We are in the metamorphosis. There is more clarity available in your silence, in your calmness. If you don't imply yourself too much in the conversations of the world, it seems like there will be conversations that need to be had in terms of personal interactions, because this full moon will illuminate that need as well. Just be mindful of where you are choosing to invest your energy, and is this conversation a use of words and thoughts as medicine or as poison, right? So we will have important, probably these conversations will bring the next insights towards what we want to go ahead with in our lives. No, let us let us just express with humility and dignity, and also listen with compassion and presence, so for these conversations to be fruitful. And well, that's what I have, family, for this full moon: to notice the story, to choose a story that is a medicine story of where we come from and where we are heading, right? I think that's what I have. Yes. Well, thank you for listening. If you enjoy this content, I invite you to subscribe, to like, to share, because it really helps the expansion of the message. And I love reading your comments. Thank you again. Truly appreciative of it. And blessings. Classo Kamati.